Ekko is the best designed, most fun DPS hero that Overwatch simply doesn't need. What's up everybody, this is Master Ian Gamer. Now that Ekko has been on PTR for a little while and I've gotten a chance to play her quite extensively, or at least as extensively as the PTR DPS queue times have allowed, I'm finally going to be making my review video of Ekko as a new hero, where I share my overall thoughts about the character and the impact they have and are going to end up having within the game and community. So without further ado, let's get into the new hero, Ekko. Real quick first though, I'd just like to remind you that if you end up enjoying this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button and stroke that bell to both help out my channel and keep up with all future Overwatch content. Anyways, now on to Ekko. So to start, I want to cover the more positive aspects of Ekko. First and foremost, she is an incredibly well-designed and fun DPS hero. She's essentially just a flying version of Tracer in terms of her playstyle, where it seems like her best use is going to be sort of harassing the backline, except she does it more from the sky as opposed to coming in from behind like Tracer does. Most of the time you're probably going to want to be focusing on the enemy support heroes, since due to her kit, it's pretty easy to pick off an isolated support if they're not aware of your presence or have some sort of ability that lets them immediately negate the effects of her sticky bombs, which I'll be talking about in just a second. But overall, she just feels very well designed. You can tell that a lot of work went into designing her kit and picking the specific abilities, as they all work together very well to make her really effective at what she's supposed to do and feel very satisfying to play. Even me, a tank main who very rarely ever plays DPS, especially not flanker DPS heroes like Tracer or Genji, I've had a really fun time playing her, and it's really satisfying when you can get some good kills and be really helpful with her. Furthermore, a lot of people were getting excited about how powerful she seemed to be when she first released on PTR, especially when it comes to her ultimate, where you can literally just copy an enemy hero and become a better version of them. But after playing her for a period of time, I actually don't think she's quite as overpowered as a lot of people initially thought. I do think she is still quite powerful and probably is going to need a bit more tuning down over the rest of her PTR cycle, but for the most part, I think she's actually fairly well balanced. She takes a good amount of skill in order to utilize effectively, and does have some decent counters, and despite how fantastically OP her ultimate sounds, I find that if the enemy team sort of knows what to expect from you when you're using Duplicate, then it's not nearly as powerful as it sounds on paper. If there's one aspect of her kit which does stick out to me as probably being a specific thing that needs tuning down, it's her sticky bombs, since again, if you can just get the jump on an enemy support and stick all of them, you're almost guaranteed to kill them outright. And even if you don't kill them with the stickies, it's very easy to follow up in combo with her finisher beam or primary fire, and makes her really good at just quickly taking out a single squishy enemy. Of course, there are ways of countering the sticky bombs, such as having Zarya bubble anyone who gets stuck with them, but at least in my opinion, they seem a bit strong as is, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them tuned at least a little bit between now and when she goes to live servers. So when it comes to her being a DPS hero in Overwatch, overall, I think she is fantastic. She's fun, high skill, engaging to play, and introduces a very well designed and fleshed out kit, in addition to what has to be one of, if not the most unique ultimate in the game. So in a vacuum, as an individual DPS hero, Ekko is amazing. However, she doesn't exist in a vacuum, and unfortunately that's where we have to come to some of the downsides of introducing the new hero Ekko as a DPS hero. I'm sure I don't have to tell you all this, but Overwatch didn't need a new DPS hero. Overall, the game is desperately needing more tanks and especially supports, and given how many people were anticipating Ekko as being a support hero, releasing her as a DPS really came across as sort of a slap in the face from the developers. Now, we actually learned a lot of interesting tidbits about her development history from various developer interviews that were released alongside Ekko, and one of the things we learned was that after initially conceptualizing her visual design, the Overwatch developers originally were planning to make her a support hero. Ultimately, she went through iterations consisting of all 3 different hero roles, but it sounds like for the most part they were trying to make her a support hero, which makes sense given what the game needs, but in the end they decided on making her a DPS hero specifically because they felt it was the best fitting role for her duplicate ultimate. One of these specific quotes from the developers was that players wouldn't like having one of their supports or tank heroes randomly turn into an enemy DPS hero, thus losing out on defensive tanking abilities or healing potential on your team for the duration of Ekko's ultimate. So because of that, they ultimately decided that Ekko couldn't be a tank or support, and thus fit her into the DPS category, as they felt that was the best location for an ultimate-like duplicate. Now, my initial response to that is surely they could have come up with a proper way of having duplicate work as a support ultimate, but I will admit that the developers are, well, the developers, so if anyone has put in the time and effort to test out how it would be possible for duplicate to work as a support ult, it was, of course, them. So at the end of the day, I'm going to take their word over whatever sort of assumptions I have or anyone else from the community, and I have to accept that they probably did test quite extensively with making Ekko a support, and it just wasn't able to work in any sort of form that they felt would be fitting. You can even tell just how strongly they must have been committed to trying to make her a support, at least in the early days, given that just about everything outside of her kit, from her backstory to her visual design and behavior within the reunion animated short, all scream that she's a support hero. Being entirely honest, what I suspect ended up happening is that Blizzard knew they needed to release Ekko before Overwatch 2 due to the story connections she had and the role she would play building up to the sequel. And while they desperately wanted to make her a support hero, they simply ran out of time to come up with a kit that would actually work for her in the support role, and thus instead went with one of the DPS versions they had designed along the way, which again resulted in a fantastically fun DPS hero and one that I am glad is in game, but the timing and build-up of Ekko's release as a DPS hero just did not resonate well at all within the community, which is honestly what has me most concerned about this latest new hero. Personally, as a tank main, it's really all the same to me whether Ekko is a DPS or support, as I wouldn't really play her a whole lot, regardless of which of those two categories she was in. But I am concerned with the amount of backlash and disappointment this has generated within the community overall. You can't deny that over the past year or so, community reception to Overwatch, and more specifically Blizzard as a whole, hasn't been too great. The game certainly isn't dying by any stretch of the imagination, but at this point, it just feels like Blizzard is more frequently generating frustration rather than satisfaction by taking this massively hyped character who everyone was anticipating to be a support hero because of how they portrayed her early on when we first saw Ekko as a character, and then releasing her as basically the antithesis of what we all wanted and expected. It's really not helping the overall state of Overwatch and Blizzard. The worst aspect of all, though, in my eyes, is how Ekko feeds directly into what I see as being the greatest problem Overwatch has currently, which is DPS queue times. This has been an overwhelming problem ever since role queue was first implemented last summer, and while the game overall has significantly improved with the addition of role queue, the super long DPS queue times have become the game's new primary problem, and releasing another super fun DPS hero to play is only further going to extend those queue times. I'm saying this as a tank main who only stands to benefit from longer DPS queue times, as it means I'll be able to queue in as tanks basically instantly. So when it comes to my gameplay experience, this is actually probably going to improve it, but my concern stems from the health of the Overwatch community. If Blizzard keeps doing things like this, which upsets the community, it's only going to worsen the game for everyone, as more and more people are going to move away from the game, and thus matchmaking overall is going to become worse. And with it now having been confirmed that Ekko will be the last new hero we have prior to Overwatch 2 releasing, which at the very least is several months, if not a year away from now, I can't help but admit that Blizzard has kind of put Overwatch in a very unfortunate situation, on top of the situation it was already in previously. So at the end of the day, is Ekko an amazingly designed, incredibly fun DPS hero? Absolutely. Am I glad to have her in-game as a hero that myself and any other player will be able to experience? Absolutely. But was she the right hero addition at this point in time, and will she help to improve the game leading up to the eventual release of Overwatch 2? Unfortunately, I think the answer to that is simply no. I commend the Overwatch developers for making such a great hero, but the timing of her release and the context of the game overall is putting the entire game in a very unfortunate position. Now, I do also need to mention that this by no means gives anyone the right to viciously attack the Overwatch developers for releasing a new DPS hero instead of a support. It's one thing to criticize the direction the developers are taking with the new content they're adding to Overwatch, but that by no means gives anyone the right to be rude or threatening towards the dev team. I've seen what people have been posting on the Overwatch forums and even the subreddit so far, and I have to say, if you're one of those people posting that, you should be ashamed of yourself. Feel free to leave all the constructive criticism you want suggesting the direction you think Blizzard should be going, but once you start getting immature with it, then you've really crossed a line. So that being said, it's still in my nature to be optimistic about things, even Overwatch, so I will eagerly be looking forward to whatever Blizzard ends up doing next with the game leading up to Overwatch 2, which hopefully will be here sooner rather than later, but I can't help but feeling just a little disappointed with how they handled the release of Ekko and the overall circumstances that her addition has brought to the game. If you enjoy playing her, which I guarantee you there will be tons of people who do, then I am incredibly happy for you. I will by no means turn a blind eye to the great aspects she does introduce to the game, but I just really wish Blizzard could have found a way to introduce her as a support hero, as honestly, that's just what the game needs at this point, and overall, they're just not doing Overwatch any favors by delaying the release of more needed heroes. Anyways, these have just been my thoughts on the new hero Ekko. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Are you as disappointed as I am with her being a DPS hero, or maybe you think that that's the role she really needed to have all along? Either way, be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and share it with your friends if you really liked it. Subscribe, stroke that bell, follow me on Twitter at MasterENGamer, and join my Discord server to never miss any future Overwatch news and content. If you'd like to support my channel, you can hit that join button down below to get some cool rewards like the people you see here on screen. Otherwise, this is MasterENGamer signing off, and until next time, have a great day.